everyone, hope you're all okay. Welcome back to another video. As you can tell by the title, this is going to be my monthly wrap up for Feb. I'm a little bit late, we are into March now, but I feel like it's still early enough in the month that the Feb wrap up is still relevant. I really want to try and stick to these. I'm so bad at being consistent on YouTube, but I feel like the monthly wrap ups is something that I can definitely stick to. So yeah, I was debating whether to film this or not, but I just thought, you know what, carry on with it. Doesn't matter that it's a little bit late. So yeah, we're going to talk about every single book that I read in February. So I managed to read 6 books. One of them was an audiobook and 2 of them, there were kind of hangovers from January. So the first book that I read was a book that I'd started in January but wasn't able to finish, and same with my audiobook actually. I'd started listening to that in Jan, but it just took me a while to finish it. I feel like 6 books is pretty good, especially when one of those books was over 800 pages long, which we will come to. But I felt like at the beginning of the month I was in a little bit of a, I don't want to say slump, but the book that I am going to talk about first was an anticipated read, but it was like a bit of a letdown. So I don't know, that started off the month in a bit of a weird way for me. So that book, the first book that I finished, was Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. I think I did mention this one when I did my January wrap up, and I think I said that I was struggling with this one a little bit, and I don't know what it was. I can't really put my finger on it, so it's going to be a bit weird to talk about, but I just felt that there was something missing and it kind of fell flat for me. So Compendium of Lost Tales is the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series, and I believe it's the final one. The first 2 just really captured my attention. It made me think of the old kind of fairy tale books that I used to read. And I don't mean fairy tales like Cinderella. I mean like tales about fairies where the fairies are really mischievous. There's this sense that the fairies lurk in our world and you can get to the fairy kingdom through little fairy doors. It's very much like that. It doesn't feel modern at all, which I really love. So the main character, Emily, is a professor at Cambridge, and the story is told through her journal entries. So it's a really quirky story. Emily herself is really quirky, and the first 2, I just absolutely love them. I love the sense of adventure. It's kind of like mild peril. It's not like massively high stakes. It's kind of like cozy fantasy, light academia, lowish stakes, but it is still like, there is still this element of adventure. But yeah, Compendium of Lost Tales, I don't know what it was, but I felt like it wasn't really giving me anything that I didn't have already in book 1 and 2, and I just preferred them in book 1 and 2. I just wasn't really invested in the story, and I feel like with something like that you kind of do have to be invested. If it's kind of cozier and a little bit slower, you've kind of got to be invested in where it's going, and I feel like the character stories didn't develop too much for me from where they were in the first 2 books, and I feel like that's probably why it fell a bit flat. Don't know, it was a bit of a shame really, because I've been putting off that one for a little while because I didn't want the trilogy to end. But yeah, it just fell a little bit flat. So rating wise, I gave that one 3.5 stars. So then the second book that I read was Beartown by Fredrik Backman, and I'm referring to my reading journal to remind me what I read in February because I have an awful memory. But yeah, Beartown by Fredrik Backman got 5 stars. I loved it. I decided to pick up Beartown purely on the hype, and I'd had it on my Kindle for ages. I think I got it on a deal. I kept seeing people just saying that it was incredible, giving it 5 stars, but then just kind of not really telling me much about the plot, which I understand now that I've read it. So on the surface, Beartown is about a small town and they don't really have much going for them apart from hockey. They've got a really good, like, junior, if I've got that right, but they've got a really good hockey team that like serves as the source of a lot of happiness, but also a lot of pressure. And there's just a lot riding on this hockey team. And I really wasn't expecting what we got in this. And I'm unfortunately going to be a bit vague, but I think I'll try and tell you like a little bit more about it than just be like, it's amazing, 5 stars, and leave it at that. But the story, I guess what surprised me was it was not that plot driven. It was really character driven. We got so many characters, and it's almost like each paragraph you changed to a different character POV. Well, it's 3rd person, but a different character focus. Normally that kind of thing I struggle with. Something like really switches to and from. I do struggle with that because I feel like I need to have time with, you know, each character if it's switching between. Usually if it's switching between characters, it's kind of like a chapter per character normally, but this was not the case. But I just really loved it. I think the way it was told was very simplistic prose. I think you just have to trust in the author and just allow yourself to be sort of swept up in what's going on. And I think as that's all happening, you are just getting so like connected to these characters, and because they're a little bit down on their luck and you learn a little bit about their backstories, your heart breaks for them. You know, the pressure of this hockey team, growing up, coming of age. It follows teenagers, but it also follows adults like their parents. So you've got so many different life experiences within this book. And it's just like, somebody commented on my TikTok saying something like, how Fredrik Backman just writes humans in the best way possible. And it's so true. It's like the human experience in that book is incredible. And I devoured it. It's quite a longish book. I want to say it's probably like 400 or so pages long. I devoured it. I just couldn't put it down. And especially after I got up to a certain point, you know, fully got into the writing style, I was invested. It was about 40%. I flew through it. I couldn't put it down. And I was just, it had me like fully like hook, line and sinker. So I have got a book club on Fable, and we pick reads every single month, and they are all very varied. We've read Frankenstein, we've read The Secret History, but this month it was Heavenly Bodies, which was a romantasy. So it's the first in a romantasy series, a fairly newish romantasy series. I think the second book is out. I think it's called Fallen Stars or something like that. But yeah, Heavenly Bodies. I think Heavenly Bodies got me just when I needed it. It got me when I was feeling really stressed and I needed a bit of an escape. And Heavenly Bodies was that escape. And I literally read this book in 2 days, completely devoured it, and I gave it 4 stars. I've seen so many mixed things on Heavenly Bodies. Some people absolutely love it and some people think it's terrible. And I feel like I can see both. I can't see why anyone wouldn't like it, if I'm going to be honest. I can't see why someone would DNF it, because it's so like fast paced and the story moves really quickly, but not in a kind of rushed way. I don't know why you'd DNF it, to be honest. If you have DNF'd Heavenly Bodies or you didn't like it, let me know why. Like I said, I can see why some people might not like it, because romantasy can be very love or hate. You either really get on with it or you don't. And there's definitely, romantasy used to be like my favourite genre. I used to read it all the time, and then I just got a little bit of a burnout with it because I felt like everything felt the same. But I don't know if it's just because I don't read a lot of romantasy at the moment that one just really grabbed me. But I really like the characters. I love the FMC, and I liked that she wasn't your typical badass FMC. Like, she was in a way, she was definitely, she knew what she was bringing to the table, but she also had some stuff of her own to work through, and she had her own motivations and story that she needed to kind of get past. Yes, it was very romance heavy, and I did love the MMC, and I will tell you about so many things. I will tell you about themes, and I will talk about writing style and character development, but I will also tell you when an MMC is hot. And I just found that this MMC was fit. Did he have much personality? No. And this is why some people might not like it, and this is why I can kind of see both ends of the spectrum. It was kind of like this celestial world, like a zodiac based kind of world, which I really liked. Was it it could have gone a bit deeper, but I feel like it is the first in a series, so we may get more. It was enough world building for me for the first book of a book like that. I am going to pick up the second book. I did like the first one, as I said, but I'm not in any rush. I'm not in any rush to binge it, and I feel like I've actually stopped doing that now with my books. I'm not really a binger. I never really was a binger, but you know, when you read things back to back that are in a series, I tend to give them a bit of a break now. And the series that made me do that was The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, because I read pretty much all of those back to back, and it put me in the biggest reading slump ever, in a good way, because that series was amazing, but I just don't want to put myself through that again, and it was just too much. And I do feel like, you know, series aren't necessarily meant to be read one after the other. They typically do have a bit of time before they come out. So I've been trying to do that, whether it's spacing it out with a couple of books in between or reading one a month. It means that it takes me longer to get through series, but I feel like I enjoy them a bit more because I just let them sit. So yeah, that was a bit long. I don't really know what I spoke about regarding Heavenly Bodies, apart from I liked it. I like the FMC, the MMC's fit, and it's a celestial world. So I mean, take of that what you will, but yeah, devoured it. It was an easy read and I enjoyed it. And then we've got Unruly by David Mitchell. So this is a non-fiction. It makes me laugh when I call it a non-fiction, because it's kind of like a comedy non-fiction about England's kings and queens, starting with King Arthur and then going all the way up to Elizabeth I, I think is the last queen or monarch on the list. This was kind of my bid to read a bit more non-fiction in 2026, but whenever I used to read non-fiction, I'd always go towards the self-help kind of Atomic Habits vibe, which I don't dislike, it's fine. But I feel like what I wanted to do was read more non-fiction on subjects that I am interested in. So that could be like historical topics or concepts that I'm interested in. So I've been trying to amass a bit of a list of things that I'm interested in. I decided to go for Unruly because I'm a fan of David Mitchell and I do enjoy that period of history and monarchs. I did a history A level and I wrote my like last essay on the Tudors. The reason I decided to listen to this on audio was because David Mitchell himself reads it. If you are aware of David Mitchell, the British comedian, you will know that his comedy style is quite ranty, it's quite witty. And that just comes across and it was so funny. I was laughing my head off. He just like goes off on random tangents, brings it back. His kind of trademark like anger or like mock anger or whatever is kind of present in it as well. It's really, really funny. I would highly recommend if you are interested in that subject matter and you like David Mitchell, the two go hand in hand very, very well. And yeah, it was a good little foray into non-fiction that wasn't too dry. Oh, and I don't think I told you my rating on that one. I gave it 4.5 stars. Two more books to talk about and I want to finish on my favourite book of the month. So the last book that I actually read was Foster by Claire Keegan, and this is actually like a novella or a short story. It's very, very short. I read it in a couple of hours. I gave this one 4.5 stars and I just think it was a really good example of a short story. I think you have to be beguiled by the writing style. The prose has got to hook you in, even though you've not got all of this kind of exposition of a setting. You're kind of thrown into a snapshot or a moment and it has to hold you there. And I think what I really liked about this was that it did that. I was straight away into this story. I was compelled immediately. The story really managed to keep my attention, keep me invested throughout. And what I liked about it was it had the right level of ambiguity. It can't tell you everything because it's such a short piece, but the ambiguity allows you to kind of fill in your own gaps about the story and how it might have began and how it might have ended. And I really liked it. And I definitely want to read more by Claire Keegan. I think I've been doing a little bit of research on Goodreads and trying to put a few more books by her on my TBR. But yeah, that was one, because of the book that I read before that, which we will come to, I needed something completely different. And I did start reading The Everlasting by Alix E. Harrow. And I got 30 pages into that. And I just was not vibing with it. And I did a little TikTok just asking people, because I'd seen so many people rave about The Everlasting, give it 5 stars, say it was incredible. And I just wasn't feeling that. So I decided to like soft DNF it. And I say soft DNF because I plan to come back to it, maybe like in the autumn. I say that and I'm not really like feeling like I want to, but we'll see. I did read Starling House by Alix E. Harrow and I did like that. I gave it like 3.5 stars. So it was solid, but not amazing. So I don't know whether that's the case with The Everlasting, but it definitely, when I posted that video on TikTok, it got like mixed comments. Some people were like, it's amazing, definitely carry on because it gets so much better. Some people were like, it gets better, but it's not very memorable. And some people were like, yeah, it was like, don't bother. So really mixed. And I kind of do want to read it for myself. But I decided to pause on that one, but I still wanted to read. So I thought a complete different genre shift and maybe something that gave me a little bit of gratification because it was so short and I'd had Foster on my Kindle for a little while and I'd seen lots of good things about it, like people recommending it as a really good read. So yeah, I'm really glad that I ended up picking up that one. And then the final book that I'm going to talk about was my favourite book of the month and it was by Robin Hobb. It was Fool's Fate, which is the final book in the Tawny Man trilogy. I gave it 5 stars, of course. This was the mammoth. This was the 800-pager. Took me a little while to read this one, actually. It took me the better part of 2 weeks. I don't think it took me exactly 2 weeks, but the beginning was really slow. And I mentioned when I read Heavenly Bodies, so this is the book I picked up directly after Heavenly Bodies. And I mentioned I was a bit stressed when I was reading Heavenly Bodies, and I think I was also still quite stressed when I picked up Fool's Fate, and I just really struggled to get into it, I think, because I wasn't in the right headspace. So it just took me a little bit longer than it usually does. But once I kind of got into it, I flew through it. It was a masterpiece. The way that trilogy ended was so great. And God, I keep saying it, don't I? Like The Realm of the Elderlings has got me completely. And I feel like it will become like my favourite series of all time once I've finished it. And I know that's a big claim, but the way I'm feeling about it is just, I can't even put it into words. So Fool's Fate was great. It was a really excellent continuation of the trilogy and end of that trilogy. And I really like Robin Hobb's way of storytelling, that she doesn't just give you everything because it's the last book. There is still so much to uncover. You still don't know where it's going to go. She rips your heart out, puts it back together, and leaves you with a book that is complete and a trilogy that's complete, but there's still so much hope for the future. And I can imagine that, you know, if you were reading these books when they came out, like as they were published, you would be left on this note, like wanting more, but feeling quite satisfied. And that is how I feel now. I'm obviously reading this where all of the books have been published, so I kind of know that I've got more to come, but I can imagine reading that and it ending there feeling like a really satisfying book. I really love the delving into the magic system. I really love the character work and the friendships and the connections that she builds between the characters. This one was a lot less politically heavy than the second book. Second book like lost a little bit of points for me, like a quarter of a point it lost, because it was a bit too politically heavy towards the end and it didn't really leave me feeling excited. Whereas this book was way more magic and action, which is really good. Definitely love those two things. So yeah, Fool's Fate was amazing and that was my favourite book of February. So all in all, I'm really happy with that month. It started off a little bit shaky, and so all in all, I feel like that was a really good month. It did start off a little bit shaky and I was worried for myself a little bit there, but it did actually get quite strong throughout as the month went on. I definitely think kind of mixing up the genres helps, especially to like keep a slump at bay. If I'm reading too much fantasy, I find that it just gets way too much in my head, especially when I'm reading like really chunky books like The Realm of the Elderlings, where they do need a lot of concentration. And if I'm looking at my reads and what I'm kind of gravitating towards, I'm feeling like a little bit of a shift in my reading tastes. I'm kind of leaning a little bit further away from like romantasy and contemporary romance. To be fair, contemporary romance, I tend to read a lot of that in the summer because the vibes are just giving contemporary romance. But I'm not really adding things to my TBR that's contemporary romance, like for the summer. I'm really gravitating towards literary fictions. I am interested to see like what the trajectory of my reading is from this point on, because I'm reading a lot of epic fantasy with The Realm of the Elderlings. That's like my main fantasy like read, and I feel like I've not really got the capacity for much more fantasy. Do you know what I mean? And all the other fantasy books that are on my TBR, like fantasy series, are like epic ones, like John Gwyn's Bloodsworn Saga is on my TBR, but I just don't feel like I've got the capacity to read that yet until I finish The Realm of the Elderlings. But I feel like that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be like making my way through chunky epic fantasy series, but in the middle of that I'm going to be splicing it in with things like literary fictions, or kind of different types of fantasies. But yeah, I don't know what that ramble was, but I definitely feel like there's a bit of a shift in my reading. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what my wrap-ups are looking like as we go through the year. But that is everything for February. Let me know how you guys got on in the month. If you had a decent February in terms of your reads, let me know what your favourite read of February was, and let me know what you're most excited to read in March. Just before you go, if you did like this video, I would appreciate a little thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos from me, then do be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks as always for being here, and I'll see you in my next video.